So if you're a movie fan, then you always have that select few movies that you remember when you were a little kid that really made you fall in love with movies. In today's video, I want to go over the movies that really made me fall in love with films. I'm not talking about when I got older and I watched more legitimately good movies. I'm talking about when I was just a little kid. The movies that kind of built the foundation for what's going to become my biggest obsession later in life. But before we get into that, like and subscribe. I do a lot of different unique videos kind of like this, just talking about movies, just movie news, new movies, all that sort of stuff. And I mean, before we continue really get into it, comment down below what your childhood movies are. What are the ones that you really remember watching and absolutely loving? But with that out of the way, let's get on to the first movie. Godzilla Final Wars. Man, I remember watching this when I was probably a little kid. So my hometown that I used to live in, they didn't have a Blockbuster, but they had a family video. And I remember at that time, I was super obsessed with Godzilla. I was so obsessed with Godzilla. I mean, I was just a little kid who loved dinosaurs. So, I mean, obviously, that was going to be the coolest thing ever. And so I saw this new other Godzilla movie that I'd never seen, Godzilla Final Wars. And so I thought, you know what? I should watch it, actually, because I'm sure I'm going to really like it. I mean, I'm a little kid. I love every movie I watch. But wow, that absolutely blew my mind away the first time I watched it. Because when you're a little kid, you've never seen anything quite like that before, and it's just the most insane things ever going on screen. There's kaijus that are doing kung fu in this. Just monsters are just flying around. It's basically one long action sequence. And the best part was when I was little, I didn't know what bad acting looked like. So when that American dude showed up, I didn't know he was a bad actor. I watch it now, he's horrendous.
The world is ruined, and the war is already lost. Now it's a matter of pride. It's whether we die hiding or die fighting.
But there's a sense of camp to it that it has that really adds a whole new layer now that I watch it when I'm older. I always like to say this, but this movie really is the closest live action film you're ever gonna get to an anime. There's even people that are just flying around buildings and cities, shooting monsters themselves and actually killing them. Just human people are doing it, and how they pull it off. It's one of those movies that it makes me happy every time I think about it. And I'll rewatch it all the time nowadays because it genuinely is one of those films that bring me back to my childhood and remind me of just how fun it used to be, how entertaining movies like that could be. And then we have Pacific Rim, which is another kaiju movie. So my first ever memory, I went to the theaters before this, but the first ever memory I actually had of going to the movies was going to see Iron Man 3, which I'll go more into later on this video. There is two parts to that memory. One is watching the movie, and one is seeing the trailer for Pacific Rim. I remember watching that, and that was a paradigm shift for me. That was really, by that point, I've already seen Godzilla Final Wars. But that doesn't do a lot of CGI. There's not really any CGI in that movie. Pacific Rim is very much a CGI movie, and I never really saw anything like that before. These robots and monsters just fighting each other, and it's so realistically done and so well done, and I never saw anything like that before. And so I remember watching the theaters. I remember after I got out of the theaters, I told my mom that I went to see the movie with that I wanted to watch it 7 or 8 more times in the theater. Because I used to be able to just rewatch movies when I was a little kid. I think most of us could. I'm not that unique. It is one of those movies where you can watch it as a little kid and be so entertained by it, and then of course watch it as an adult and realize how great the story is. Because I think Pacific Rim does one thing that not a lot of kaiju movies do, and that's really focus on the characters a lot more than you'd think. Obviously, the majority of the movie is more focused at the world, the plot, and the action. But there's seriously some, good character work that's done between these people. Especially Idris Elba, who probably has one of my favorite character arcs for any kaiju movie ever. I think it's just a movie that I don't know. I feel like people don't talk about it enough. Like I don't feel like people mention Pacific Rim, especially as Guillermo del Toro's one of his best better movies. Like it is such a well done film that I remember so vividly seeing in theaters. And again, it's a movie that I think about it, it brings me back joy. Then we got Spaceballs, which I've talked about this movie plenty of times in the channel before, so I won't spend too much time on it. But I remember when I was little, I was on like some like summer camp thing. The people that were playing, I don't even know how old I was. I was probably like 6 or something, and everyone else there was about 6. And I don't know if it was like the camp advisor or whatever. Again, I don't remember exactly what it was, but they thought it'd be a good idea to play Spaceballs for us because I guess they didn't know all the jokes in it, all the cussing or whatever. I remember watching that, and then we had to stop it probably around like 15 minutes in. And I wanted to watch this movie so bad for so many years afterwards. And then I finally was allowed to watch it. And I think realistically, I've probably seen the movie about 50 times. Again, like that's realistically speaking, because there was a period for a month where I'd say I'd watch it 1 to 2 times a day. I watched that over and over again for probably about a month straight. And then of course rewatching it so many times years after I've seen it. So realistically, I probably watched it around maybe 40, 50 times. I would say that between 40 or 50 times I've watched it. It really is just the most rewatchable comedy I've ever seen. It's such a perfect movie, and it goes to absurd levels of the satire that it's trying to make out. And I love it. I love it. I also like to talk about Clue, which is funny because I remember rewatching this movie so many times when I was younger, and I hadn't seen it for years. And then I finally decided I'll rewatch it again and realized just how much went over my head. I can't believe I actually enjoyed the movie as much as I did when I was little, because there's so much of the plot that completely went over my head and I just did not understand at all. Like so many things. I don't even think it's the nostalgia that's got me. This is genuinely deserves to be a classic comedy because there's so much layers of it that's going on at the same time, and so many different characters that are all working together, and it's all builds up to the very end. And I love the multiple endings. There's just something really funny about just watching these people running around this big mansion and just finding like these absurd situations they get in, these hilarious situations, a lot of really great comedy that's working in between all of it. It really is such a great old movie that I really love. And then there's Megamind, which, man, that movie, it sucks that it got overshadowed by Despicable Me because that film did not deserve that. It deserved to be its own franchise and get its own movie series. Although we did get the Doom Syndicate. Man, Megamind did not deserve that. It really did not deserve that sequel. But I think this is one of the smartest DreamWorks movies that they ever did. Like, obviously, they got Shrek. That's easily the smartest movie they've ever done. But even outside, like that, the second movie that I'd put behind it would be Megamind because of just how much work that actually goes on between each of these characters, all these different arcs that they go on. It really is like a good movie that's like kind of more of like a commentary of sorts. Maybe not as much as maybe I'm trying to make it out to be, but it really does feel like a commentary on like superheroes and supervillains. And it's all done very, very well done. And also the voice acting is so terrific. As well as a lot of the visuals that go on in this movie, like it really did deserve. I love Despicable Me, but man, it did not deserve to be overshadowing a movie like this. And then we have the MCU, and specifically the first 3 phases. But like I said earlier, Iron Man 3 was the first movie going experience that I really remember. And so that's another reason why I'm a little bit biased for that movie, as well as just the fact that it's a way better movie than people can make it out to be. The thing about the MCU is that the majority of my life, like basically all my life, the MCU has existed. And so I've grown up watching these Marvel movies. I've grown up just seeing this story slowly progressing as time goes on and really being in that journey from the beginning. And so I always have just this little bias for Marvel movies that like I remember whenever the series started, I remember watching all these movies and really loving them. And so that's why I always have like this slight bias for Marvel movies because I've always experienced them growing up. I've always been with them, especially like that phase during like the early 2010s when I was like really getting old enough to like really know about Marvel and understand it. And watching these movies made me so happy. And so, yeah, those are really my picks. I mean, what do you think? I mean, do you agree with me, disagree with me? I'd love to hear all your thoughts down below. And also, what are your favorite childhood favorites? Like, what movies that really you watched at a young age that really made you love films? And that's really it. That's really all I have to say. So, I mean, until next time, it's movie talk. See ya.